Good evening, everyone. What a packed house. It is so lovely to see all these wonderful faces out in the audience, and they're all here for you, Catherine. Yes, yes. And this incredible night, right, where you're launching your brand new project. It's okay, breathe, breathe. We're here because we love you, because we support you, and because even though the ones who haven't read the book yet, trust me, you will love this book. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Vanessa Ruiz, and I am so pleased and so honored that you asked me to moderate our conversation this evening. What can I say? I had the opportunity to just dive into this book, and I guess the first thing, and we're not tight on time, but I want to make sure that we get in as much as possible, right? So I give you, as they say, the floor, and then we'll get started. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Fantastic.
Hi, thank you. It's very weird talking to a room full of people that you mostly know. But thank you guys so much for being here. It means so much to me that you are all here, and I'm really just so excited to be talking about this book because it actually just is not for me. I actually wrote it for all of you and hopefully lots of people that you know. And so, yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Wonderful. Okay, so the Changemaker's Toolkit. That is the name of the book. The first question I want to ask you is, where do you hide your magic crystal ball? Because I have to say, Catherine, I don't know if you foresaw as you were writing this book, how incredibly timely. What an amazing moment for your book to land now more than ever. I mean, change making, it's always a good time to be a change maker, but I think right now, as we know, we're living through some really interesting times. And I think this book is going to resonate and shake people up in a very good way. So with that said, tell us the very first thing. What led you? You've done so many things in your career, in your life. You're a business owner, you're a keynote speaker. Why a book?
Well, it was a lot of different paths that came together all at once. And the main thing was that we are living at a time where this sense that everything is hard is palpable. And one of the things that comes up in conversations that I have every single day at the moment is how hard and heavy things feel, and really how disconnected and disempowered people feel to do anything about it. I'm curious, how many of you feel like you have conversations like that pretty consistently? It just comes up a lot. It comes up in our families and at work and in our media and on our social media, and just this sense that everything is headed in the wrong direction and that we're just kind of along for the ride. And you hear people a lot talk about everything's going to hell in a handbasket and, everything's getting worse and the earth is a dumpster fire. And at the same time, I have the incredible privilege, because of the company that I work with and lead and the clients that I have the absolute privilege of working with, is every single day seeing this incredible work happening in our community. And life-changing work that changes not only the people that are being served, but also the people that do the work. And many of the clients that I had the pleasure of observing are in the room today. And these two things just didn't seem to match to me at all. That what I got to see, this incredible life-changing work and this story that we were all living in, that everything is difficult. And so around that time, a friend of mine asked if I would consider keynoting that conference. And it was all of those ideas that went into that initial keynote. And it was just really, really well received, I think. And so then it developed into the Changemaker's Toolkit. And one of the things that I accidentally did with this book, that if I wrote another one, I would like to do again, is keynoting it and writing the book at the same time, because it becomes this kind of feedback loop where each time I give the keynote, I change it a little bit and based on what people respond to. And then I was researching the ideas in the book at the same time, and they're not identical, but they're very similar. And that was kind of an accidental thing that ended up being really helpful.
What do you mean if you write a second book? Come on now, right? Let's not say that, because I think you most definitely can and will write a second book after this one. So you talk about working with clients. That's a source of inspiration for you. the work that you do. You've done work in the past in the political sphere. But what really motivated you, Catherine, personally, to want to be a change maker? That's sort of a big thing for somebody to say, I want to change the world, my community, those around me for good. What was your personal story there?
Yeah, so I just had always wanted to make a difference in the world. And I never had better language for it than that. When people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I didn't say, I want to make a difference in the world, because that's a really quick way to not get invited to parties. Uh, but that's really was the true answer. And so it took me ages to figure out what that looked like. And it took me even longer to figure out why, and where it all came from. And as I got older and reflected a lot on where it all came from and went to therapy, I figured out where it all came from, which is when I was 6 months old. This is something that happened in my life that has shaped my entire life and who I am as a person and everything I care about. And so many of you in this room have heard this story, but you'll know just how deeply personal and important it is to me. And that is that when I was 6 months old, my older brother, Rory, died in an accident 3 weeks before his third birthday. And I don't know what it is like to lose a child, and I don't remember Rory. We shared 163 days on the earth only. But I do know what it's like to grow up in a grieving family with a front row seat to what that kind of loss does to people and how it changes what you think the world will offer you. And at the same time, me and my younger brother, Alec, had everything you would want any kid to have. We had great family vacations. We had so much love and just like everything that you could want any child to have. And our parents taught me and my younger brother two things. One, life does not come with a safety blanket. I just grew up with this sense that the rug could get pulled out from underneath me at any moment. And two, given that reality, the only thing that any of us really have, the only power any of us truly have, is to make a difference in the lives of other people. And that is a power that you must choose to use. And so it was that really that instilled in me, I think, this just power, this urge, this drive to want to work in our community. And it took me a long time to figure out what that would look like, and very accidentally stumbled into American political campaigns, which is, a lot of you know here, it's a thing. Where I stumbled into an internship with David Wade, who's here tonight, and I really owe so much to David, because he just opened a door. And I think for what I found in American political campaigns was my people. I found other people who for the first time were just like me, driven to make the world better and to make the world different. And that is what became home for me for a really long time.
Thank you so much for sharing that powerful story. And I think it's amazing, right, that you, like so many, use an unfortunate, tragic circumstance and then somehow manage to use that as fuel and power to do good, right? So thank you for that. We talked a little bit, you mentioned it just a few minutes ago. Again, we're living in interesting times. It is palpable, right? We talk to our friends, our family, our circles, and folks are feeling anxious, uncertain. How is it that you still believe that anyone, for example, in this room, can still be a change maker for good in the current climate that we are existing in?
Yeah. The simple answer to that is the people in this room. I mean, you guys show me every single day that change is not only possible, but it's happening, and you are making it happen. And so when I started researching the book and understanding what is the reason behind this disconnect of our feeling that everything is useless, while I see evidence every single day that that's not the case. And I discovered that there are three things that are making our current moment feel particularly potent. The first one is the big problems that we face. And we face some pretty big problems. Big problems aren't new, but some of the challenges that we're facing right now feel existential. threats to democracy, things like challenge crises around housing and homelessness, climate change, these things that are really associated with how we understand our daily lives and what we want daily lives to look like for our children and our grandchildren. So that's number one. Number two is the institutions that we trust to respond to these big problems. We don't really trust them anymore. And research shows that trust levels in public institutions is the lowest they've ever been since we started asking people in the 70s. And since 2022, so coming out of the pandemic, trust really has bottomed out. And research shows that on average, when you ask Americans how much they trust a whole range of institutions, government, media, military, business, big business, small business, it's around 28%. It's less than a third. We have less than a third of trust. And then the third factor that I feel like really wraps around those two like a big unpleasant bow is the rapid rate of change that we're living in. And there's a good chance that you feel this every single day. Just it feels like you can barely wrap your head around one set of technologies and cultural changes before another come down the pike. And that is a true fact. Things are changing faster than they ever have, and that is just going to keep getting faster because the rate of change is exponential. And so what my research showed is that those three things really make us feel like everything's useless. And when you reconsider those three things and you reframe them, we actually have unprecedented opportunity to drive impact. And I think that is why all of you in this room are seeing the results that you are seeing. It's not a story that gets told that confronts that narrative that everything is bad.
Well, everything is not bad. I will say that. No, not all of it. And that's why I started our conversation tonight by saying you must have had some kind of hidden magic crystal ball that would have allowed you to foresee the future as you were writing this book. Because, and yes, this is a full plug, right? This is part of the reason why we're here today. But if you get your hands on a copy, I love the fact that it's a clear read. It's an easy read. As a former journalist, I appreciate good, concise, clean copy. And also that you don't just say, oh, you should do these things. You actually walk us through the process of how you should do these things. And you do so by using 4 main tools, right, in the Changemaker's Toolkit. Talk to us about those tools and how did you come to them?
Yeah, so the first tool is vision, that you must have a vision for the world as you want it to be. And I'm not really thinking here about a vision statement, which is a mainstay of the social sector. And a vision statement is a powerful tool. But really what I'm talking about is a vision story, which is a long form, vivid description of how you want the world to look in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever long term means to you. And that can be for the work that you're doing in the world you're creating, but also your organization and how things are structured internally. So that's number one. Number two is a set of systems that help you take consistent action toward that vision. Number three is knowing what your core values are. And I here get really, really specific, and I'm not really talking about organizational values, although those are important. What I mean is, what do you think, or what are your core values as an individual? And how are you using those to navigate not only decisions and choices that you make every day, but challenges? And then the fourth tool, and you're not supposed to have favorites, but if I had a favorite, it might be this one. And I think it's because it's mission critical. And that is that you must never, ever lose sight in your belief in your ability to drive change. And so that fourth tool is conviction, and your conviction in your own ability.
How did you come to these 4 tools?
Yeah, so it took like maybe 15 years.
Holy.
Yeah, ish. A lot of it is, most of it is what I used to build Javelina and what I observed my clients used to drive impact. And just reflecting on it's really these 4 that it comes down to in terms of how do you create a structure that creates outcomes. And then there was a lot of personal experiences. I'm a learner is one of my core values. And so anytime I go through anything, as long as I can figure out the lesson, I'm happy. And so a lot of it was just personal experiences that I would reflect on and think, what can I take away from this, and how is this relevant to what I'm trying to do on a day-to-day basis? And I actually want to, if you had on your chair a postcard, now is going to be, if you can grab that, yeah, so it should be a postcard, an envelope, and a pen. You might be sitting on it. And then for those of you in the back in the room, there should be some around. And hopefully most people will be able to grab a postcard. Okay, so what I want to do is demonstrate real quick one of the tools, vision. So if you flip the postcard over, it should say, what does it say, Nate?
The world as it should be is a place where.
The world as it should be is a place where ... So what I want you to do in just a few words, like no more than a sentence, is end that sentence. For you, how is the world as it should be defined? Okay, if you need more time, just keep writing. But when you have written and put it in your envelope and sealed it, I want you to exchange it with someone else. Now, this doesn't have to be scientific. Just pass it 2 seats down. And as long as you end up with someone else's envelope and they end up with your envelope, it doesn't matter. Okay, anybody have a completed envelope that they haven't exchanged with somebody? That you haven't? Okay, so hold on to those. We're going to come back. So if you are still writing, you have time to finish it up and then just make sure you exchange with somebody else. Okay, we're going to come back to that later.
We're going to circle back,
Yeah.
as they say. So let's talk a little bit about specific examples, right? Again, you go through every step. It's very clear. And so talk to us about a specific example of effective, positive change that has inspired you or that you particularly love.
Yeah. There's a ton of stories in the book, all of whom are real everyday change makers who I've had the pleasure of working with and who are interviewing. A lot of them are here tonight. Daniel Davis, I see, from Threshold is in the book. Though I'm not going to do that because I'm going to embarrass I'm going to miss somebody. But I just see you right there. You're right allowed to say. But there's a lot of them. But one of the favorite examples comes from the book is a friend and colleague named Vaughn Crandall, who I interviewed. And Vaughn has worked in the prevention and reduction of violent crime and homicide for his entire career. And I was talking to him about violent crime prevention and the ups and downs that have been experienced in the States over the last few years. And many of you may know that there was a surge in violent crime and homicides in many cities around the country during and as they're coming out of the pandemic. And Vaughn and his colleagues have been really responsive to responding to that trend and that epidemic. They had worked in Oakland, in California. And Oakland had actually seen a big drop in violent crime between 2012 and 2019 because of an initiative called Oakland Ceasefire. And Oakland Ceasefire focused on 3 different sort of prongs of this initiative. One was focusing on reducing recidivism. The second was focusing on community police relations. And then the third thing was, what was the third thing, Vanessa? There was a third thing, which I'll come back to. And I'm forgetting, but I'm sure it was very important. And it was incredibly effective. And then, as many leaders happened, there was a lot of distraction during the pandemic. And then Oakland saw a really sharp increase in violent crime. And so the community and city leaders came together again after the pandemic and really focused and reignited Oakland Ceasefire. And then Oakland experienced a 34% drop in homicide and violent crime in 2024, which it's a 30% drop in homicide and violent crime in 1 year, by the way, which is absolutely incredible and was the largest single year drop that Oakland had seen in its entire history. And when I asked Vaughn, because they have and continue to have incredible successes in cities across the States and in Mexico as well. When I asked him, what do you need to be able to see that kind of movement on violent crime in the city? He said, more often than not, it starts with a moment of crisis. And usually there is some kind of crisis needed to create the political will that is necessary for the different partners to come together to create something like a 34% drop in violent crime. And when I was reflecting on my conversation with Vaughan afterwards, I was thinking about how powerful that is and thinking about it in the context of our current moment, where we, I think, in many different ways, in many different communities, in many different sectors, are in a moment of crisis. And when you're in the moment of crisis, it is all but impossible to see the opportunity that creates for fast-tracked change. But that is, in fact, what we are in. We are in a moment that has incredible opportunity for fast-tracked change. And there's the people in the room that are going to make it happen.
I think I want to hang on to that. I want to hang on to that sentiment. When you and I were preparing for tonight, we talked a lot about just that sense and acknowledging that so many folks are feeling, right? That sense of there's just so much going on. It feels like it's too much. What can I do, right? And a lot of folks are feeling tired. They're feeling exhausted. And we felt it was important to acknowledge that because, as you know, we don't want tonight or folks to read the book and think it's like everything's going to be great.
Yeah.
Everything's wonderful.
Yeah.
Here are your tools to be a change maker and you're going to get it done. No, I think acknowledging certain things is also important and we agreed upon that. So what would you say to those folks, right? I know folks are feeling it, but what would you say to them in this moment?
Yeah, I try to be very conscious of that in talking about the book and anytime I give the keynote, because I never want it to feel like the message is, oh, it's all going to be fine. Because I don't feel that way. There is going to be loss of life, suffering, and an attack on values that I hold very dear. And I know a lot of you hold very dear. And so that is something that has to be sat with and processed. And I never want to kind of shove that down. And that, I think, is a part of making change, is sitting with that. And then when you feel ready to think, okay, what am I going to do? What does action look like for me in this current moment? I think this is two things. The first thing is to take stock of all the things you are already doing, to be intentional about your impact in the world. And I know that every single one of you are doing a lot. Already just doing so much. And we tend to take those things for granted and we kind of bank them and forget about them and forget about how much time and energy and intention it takes to do those things. And so that's number one. And then number two comes from an experience I had when I first moved here. And that was, I first moved here to do my master's degree at Arizona State. And the second year of my degree was the first year of the downtown Phoenix campus. And, was not what it is today. And it was controversial among a lot of people. And President Crow came to speak to our master's class about the downtown Phoenix campus and about the vision for the campus and the vision for the university. And he said something that I have never forgotten. And I come back to it all the time. And he said that we are standing on the shoulders of giants. And that what we get to do is carry the ball forward 5 yards before you pass it on to the people that come after you. And so I think the most powerful question and the most powerful switch that you can do today is, rather than to think about all the problems, all the things that are going wrong, the whole world, think about what are your 5 yards and what are you doing today in this moment to carry that ball forward. And that changes. It changes with the season of life. It changes with the resources you have. It changes with the amount of energy you have. And that's okay. Carrying the ball forward 5 yards someday can just be like holding on to the ball with your fingertips. And that's okay. But I think coming back to that question can be a really helpful reframe.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Really helpful. This question actually is not on our list. Surprise.
Hello.
I think we have time. I told the Changing Hands staff to keep me honest, so I haven't seen any manic or panicked hand gestures just yet. And you all are also going to have an opportunity to ask Catherine some questions. So that's coming up real short in a short amount of time. But just what do you hope people take away from this book, Catherine? It's such a simple question, but I've seen firsthand the passion, the true passion and dedication and love that you have put into this book, and now that it's out into the world, what do you want people to take away from it?
So I wrote the lion's share of the book in January of last year. So right around the inauguration, and a lot was changing. A lot was changing in my sector, and there was just a lot of despair. And I turned in the first draft on the 31st of January last year. And I thought, it's kind of a shame this isn't coming out now because it's so needed. And this time next year, everything will be better.
That magic crystal ball.
I'm very naive and gullible. And I think that this message, which if I had to boil it down to a nutshell, is you can make change, is needed always, and it's kind of universal. And so I've been so lucky to have people here in the room who've already read it, who've been my early readers, early reviewers, and I'm so grateful to you. And one person sent me a message last week and was like, I'm thinking about your book in this moment, and I'm just really going to double down on my 5 yards. And and I said to Ruben, it was like, I'm good. I've done it. And he was like, well, it hasn't come out yet. So maybe let's not be done.
Way to be supportive, Ruben.
Ruben's always pushing me to do more. That's the hope. That's the hope. If one person times whatever multiplier is motivated to double down and pursue the community in alignment with their values, then that's
Mission
the hope.
accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
And it will be accomplished. I'm not just saying that. I had the opportunity to read the book before tonight, and it definitely struck some chords. And not to be strange or anything, but I read the book, and every page I could hear what I was reading in Catherine's beautiful accent. It was so interesting and strange at the same time. Maybe that will happen to you too as well. I know it's also coming out in audiobook that you have read. So doubling down on that. Okay, so we're going to get back into the audience portion of the evening. So now it'll be your turn to ask Catherine any question you like. And then also after that, there's a second portion of the exercise, correct?
Yes, we're coming back to the postcard.
Okay. So who would like to ask Catherine a question? We're amongst family and friends here tonight, so don't be shy. Fantastic.
Yeah, so the question is, what would the message be to a young person who is interested in making change? I actually think the framework is kind of exactly the same. Like, figure out what your 5 yards are. So when I was her age, my 5 yards, and it still was, but it still is, but it really was defined then, was animal cruelty. That was the thing I cared about the most. And so me and a friend got very involved with the RSPCA. What's the American? ASPCA. Okay, great. I'm going to do it. The RSPCA. And we did like bake sales, and we made things and we sold them. And we just, I think we raised like over 5 years. I mean, I think we raised like $60. But that was like, I know I wasn't very successful small business owner at that age, but any amount matters. Any amount matters. Thank you, Vanessa. And I think what matters was the process of figuring out what my 5 yards were, taking action toward it, and then, doing things in alignment with my values. A lot of people know here I'm vegan today, and it's incredibly important to me and a big part of who I am. But what it did, it really, with hindsight, was it built my belief in my ability to make change. I believed that I could do something like make a thing, sell a thing to an adult, give the money to somebody else, and then, help an animal. And really, that's probably what led to believing I could influence the American political system. Silly me.
That's hilarious. Okay, yes. Ooh, Rick McCartney from all the way in the back.
So who do I envision should read the book? Like, who would my wish be? Yeah, who am I going to send a free copy of the book to? So I think it's sort of types of people. I don't really have a sort of a specific leader in my mind, but I think that it's either somebody who's leading an organization, a campaign, anything, who's feeling beaten down, that they are feeling run out of steam, that they're starting to lose sight of where they're pushing the boulder to. For me, owning a small business, this is going to sound bad for my team members in the room, has kind of always felt like pushing a boulder up a hill. But the hardest days are when I lose sight of where I'm pushing the boulder to. And when you start to lose sight, I think that is when you need to read the book. And then the other group would be kind of an up and coming change maker. And I think that can be the teenager who doesn't know, quite how they want to shape the world. I think it can be somebody who's working, who doesn't feel like they're contributing in a way that they want to, and maybe wants to switch sectors or get involved in a new issue. I think it's designed to be. So it's kind of designed to be an entryway and a boost.
Love that.
Thanks.
Thanks for your question. Okay, I think we have time for maybe a couple more questions. Yes, right here at the front.
Yeah, so the question is, what about when your vision changes and maybe you find yourself going in a new path, and the energy that it takes to do that, and maybe sometimes the permission, because to really believe in a vision, you have to get very, very invested in it, and then when you start to change that vision, that can feel lots of ways. So I think for me, I have my guiding vision, which I don't anticipate changing, which is a kinder and more equitable world. And everything I do is for a kinder and more equitable world. And I really tried to stick to that in big ways and small ways and huge ways and tiny ways. And I'm not perfect, but I'm always in pursuit of that. And then there's the train I'm on in pursuit of that, and that changes. And so I think it's two things. One, getting crystal clear on what's the thing that doesn't change, and then giving yourself permission to hop trains. And it's really hard. That is a hard part of the process. And I think it's probably supposed to be, because if you didn't believe in the first train, you wouldn't have jumped on in the first place. I don't know if that's helpful. You were like, how do I help with this hard thing? I'm like, yeah, it's really hard. No.
Well, and I think it's worth mentioning that at no point in the book do you say, this is easy.
No,
right? I mean, this is deep, rooted, everyday, putting forward the intention type of work, right? Yeah. Okay, we have time for one more question. I know it's out there. I'm going to see a hand shoot up. Okay.
Oh, you said shoot up.
There we go.
Oh God, that's a really hard question. Okay, how should you describe it? Okay, so what I have been saying to people is it's a book about how you drive social impact in today's world. And that's a good descriptor. The other thing I would say about the framework in the book, and there's personal examples in there too, I have absolutely used it to grow the businesses and to work with our clients. But I've also used it for like a wide range of personal challenges. I've used it to this same framework anytime I've wanted to create change in my life. I've used this same thing: vision, action, values, conviction. And so, and really it's a book about how you make change. And if you make change on a social level, great. If you make change on a personal level, wonderful. If you do both at the same time, that's probably the best.
Thank you. Great question, Erin. All right. So do we want to dive in now into the second portion of our exercise?
Okay. So everybody should have an envelope. Wave it up in the air. Okay.
That's a photo right there.
All right. Go ahead and open it up and just read it to yourself. All right. So you have in your hands and now in your head somebody else's vision for a better world. And your vision for a better world is in somebody else's hands, eyes, head right now. And so just by very definition, already the world is a little bit different, because you have put your deepest hope for an improved world out into the world and somebody has received it. And it really is that simple to get started, and then you just follow the feeling that creates and you keep going, and that is when you will change the world. So I really invite you to keep these postcards, and if it connected with you, keep it as a reminder that the world is changing anyway. It's going to change on its own, but we have the opportunity to change it on purpose in alignment with the things that we care the most about, and you are exactly the people that are going to do it.
Well said. Well said. So a few notes before we end our conversation tonight. There will be an opportunity to please go and purchase Catherine's new book. Highly encourage you to do so. Number one, you'll have an opportunity to get that signed, which I think is really cool. So don't waste that opportunity. But before we go, how do you want folks to engage with you? How do you want folks to connect with this book far beyond the folks who are in the room tonight?
Yeah, so when I wrote the book, it was never envisioned that it would be beautifully sitting on someone's shelf, although I do think it's beautiful. The publisher did such a great job of it. But it was always designed to be thumb-eared and underlined and really this field guide for making change. And so my biggest hope is that it connects with real people making a real impact, and that those are the people it's for, and those are the people I'd love to connect with. And so my truest hope is just that it is shared and spread around.
Fantastic. And it will. It will. Catherine, thank you so much for inviting me to help lead our conversation. Absolutely. You can say one more thing. It's your night.
So, you know that recurring dream/nightmare when everyone you know and love is in one room staring at you?
No. Thank God I haven't had that.
I just want to take a moment to acknowledge every single one of you for just being supportive and being here and the change that you make in the world. There was a moment where I sat down with most of you and told you I was writing a book, and not one of you laughed in my face. Not one. You might have done it behind my back, but not to my face. And when you tell someone you're going to write a book and they don't laugh at you, that's actually really, really helpful, really powerful. And so I just want, my gratitude runs really, 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 really deep. And thank you so, so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much for writing this book. You said you're not a happy tears crier, but tonight might be the night. Thank you for writing this book. I'm being very serious. I think it does hit so many right notes in such a critical moment for all of us. And change can happen in big ways, in small ways, in medium ways. And I highly encourage all of you to read the book, walk away feeling inspired. I know I was. What an ending to that book. I will not give the ending away. Plug, tease. However, thank you. It's an honor, and enjoy. Great to see you all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.